Vera Lockridge stood motionless, the letter trembling in her hands. Its black-edged paper cut deeper than any blade, a final mark of everything she had lost. Boston felt like another lifetime. The stone streets and quiet parlors of tea and manners had been traded for the raw, punishing sprawl of the Arizona territory. Outside, the wind tore across the yard, lifting dust from the cracked earth of the ranch that now belonged to her, and weighed on her like a debt she had never asked for. Miss Lockridge? Ruth Calder, the housekeeper who had come with the property, tapped gently at the door. The supplies just arrived from town. Vera drew herself straight, folding her grief away the way she had learned to do since Jonah Lockridge's death 3 months earlier. "Thank you, Ruth. I'll be right out." The mirror showed her a stranger. Freckles had already begun to rise on skin once untouched by the sun, and her carefully kept chestnut hair refused to obey the dry desert air. 23 years in Boston society had done nothing to prepare her for this exile. Outside, the wagon driver stacked sacks of flour and beans, his eyes darting toward the distant mountains. "Best get inside, ma'am," he said, tipping his hat. "Word is the Apaches were spotted near Prescott." Vera felt her jaw tighten. More trouble? "Stagecoach hit 2 days back. 3 dead." His voice dropped. "Frontier cavalry sending more men out from Fort Whipple." The words settled in her chest like stone. Only a week after her arrival, she had seen the smoking remains of a neighboring homestead. Shallow graves, scorched earth, silence where life had been. That night, she dreamed of painted faces and fire, of flames swallowing everything her father had built in this unforgiving land. "Thank you for the warning, Hobbs Miller," she said, pressing a coin into his palm. "You'll be safe on the ride back?" "Got my rifle. They don't usually come this close in daylight." "Usually." The word echoed as she watched the wagon disappear in a trail of dust. Jonah's letters had spoken of opportunity, never of fear. What would he think now, seeing his daughter scanning the horizon for death? "Miss Vera," Ruth called from inside. "Sheriff Orson Pike's coming up the drive." Vera smoothed her skirts, grateful for the interruption. Sheriff Pike had been Jonah Lockridge's friend and the man entrusted with his will. His visits brought news and a fragile sense of connection to the world she had left behind. "Sheriff," she greeted as he dismounted, catching the strain in his weathered face. "What's wrong?" He removed his hat, gray threading his hair. "I'm afraid I've brought troubling news. Army scouts spotted Apache movement watching your property yesterday." Her blood ran cold. "Watching me?" "Can't be certain," he said carefully. "But Silas Crow believes they're planning something. Have you reconsidered his offer of protection? The fort could spare men." "No." The word came fast, pride cutting through fear. "I won't abandon my father's land at the first threat. This ranch is all I have left of him." The sheriff sighed. "Your father was a stubborn man. Seems it runs in the family." He motioned toward the house. "At least let me check your defenses. And I want Cade Miller to stay overnight when he brings the next delivery. No woman should be alone out here." Vera agreed, though the thought of strangers under her roof offered little comfort. As they circled the property, Pike pointed out weak spots, promising reinforcements to the doors and windows. "The trouble is," he said, eyes on the mountains, "we never know where they'll strike. The Apaches move like ghosts." That evening, after the sheriff left, Vera sat on the porch watching the sunset bleed fire across the desert. The beauty caught in her throat. How could a land so dangerous be so alive? The saguaros stood like silent sentries. Movement on the ridge made her reach for the rifle Jonah had insisted she learn to use. By the time she raised it, the rider was gone. Had it been her imagination? Or an Apache scout watching her even now? Sleep refused her. Every creak, every breath of wind felt like a warning. Near dawn, exhaustion dragged her under, filling her dreams with a man whose eyes were dark as obsidian, watching from the shadows. Copper Springs existed for two reasons: the man who named it, and the stagecoach line that tied it to civilization. Vera guided her horse down the dusty street, nodding to the few women brave enough to follow their husbands west, their curious glances trailing her as she passed. The sight of a Boston-bred woman trying to pass as a rancher was still something folks talked about. From inside the general store, Ellis Moore called out, "Miss Lockridge, your order came in on yesterday's stage." Vera swung down from her saddle and tied the reins to the hitching post. "Any mail for me, Mr. Moore?" "Just newspapers. 3 weeks late, but better than nothing," he said with a dry chuckle before vanishing into the back. The store smelled of coffee grounds and worn leather, a small comfort against the dust and heat outside. While she waited, Vera drifted along the shelves, adding a fresh notebook and a handful of peppermint candies, small pieces of a life she'd left behind. The door swung open with a rush of hot air and the sharp jingle of spurs. She turned as a tall man in a military uniform stepped inside, captain's bars catching the low light. "Miss Lockridge," he said, lifting his hat to reveal close-cropped blonde hair. "Silas Crow. We haven't been properly introduced." She offered a polite nod. "Briggs Crow's son, I assume." "The same." His blue eyes measured her without apology. "My father mentioned speaking with you about protection for your ranch." "He did," Vera replied, selecting a tin of tea. "And I declined." "With respect, ma'am, that was before we captured the Apache." His voice dropped. He was carrying this. He held out a silver hair comb. Vera recognized it instantly. She had lost it her first week on the ranch, thought it gone for good. Her fingers trembled as she took it. "Where did he get this?" "That's what I asked," Crow said darkly. He wouldn't talk, not even under firm questioning. The meaning hung heavy between them. Vera had heard enough about army interrogations to know what firm meant. "What happened to him?" "He escaped last night, killed a guard." Crow's jaw tightened. "We'll find him. We always do." Ellis Moore returned with her parcels, glancing uneasily at the officer. "Everything all right here?" "Fine," Crow said curtly. Vera gathered her things. "If you'll excuse me, Captain, I should head back before dark." Outside, Crow followed her. "At least let me escort you. These roads aren't safe." "Thank you, but I know the way." She mounted smoothly, grateful for the riding lessons Jonah Lockridge had insisted upon back east. "Good day, Captain." As she rode off, she felt his eyes burning into her back. The comb weighed heavy in her pocket, proof that an Apache warrior had been close enough to take something of hers, close enough to the house. The thought sent a chill through her. The sun was sinking when she saw smoke on the horizon. Her heart hammered as she urged her horse forward, praying it wasn't her ranch. Relief came when the roofline appeared untouched. But the smoke rose just beyond her land, from the direction of Ben Crow's cabin. Every sensible instinct told her to turn back, bar the doors, and wait for help. Instead, she rode toward the smoke, driven by the same stubborn resolve that had carried her west. The cabin still stood, but flames swallowed the small barn beside it. She spotted Ben Crow near the water trough, crumpled and bleeding. Vera slid from her saddle and knelt beside him, blood soaking his shirt from a wound in his chest. His eyes fluttered open. "Miss Lockridge," he rasped. "Run. There—" A war cry tore through the air. Vera froze. Slowly, she turned. 3 Apache warriors sat mounted before her, faces painted, eyes cold and unreadable. One dismounted and advanced with measured steps. Tall, broad-shouldered, his gaze cutting straight through her. Unlike the others, he wore no paint, only a single eagle feather threaded into his long black hair. Vera reached for Ben Crow's rifle, but the warrior knocked it aside with ease and stood over her, silent and imposing. She braced herself for death. Instead, he spoke in clear, accented English. "You should not be here, white woman." She stared at him. "You speak English. Better than you speak Apache." A faint, fleeting smile touched his mouth. He glanced at Ben Crow, then back to her. "This man is dead. Others will come. You should leave." "You killed him," she shot back, anger burning through fear. "Just like you killed those people on the stagecoach." Something stirred in the warrior's dark eyes, surprise, perhaps, or a trace of pain he refused to show. "I have taken many lives," he said evenly. "This one was not by my hand." One of the other warriors called out in Apache. The tall man answered sharply, never once breaking his gaze from Vera Lockridge. "My brothers have little patience," he warned. "They say you have seen our faces. They say you should die." Vera lifted her chin, forcing the fear down. "Then why am I still breathing?" He studied her for a long moment, as if carving her features into memory. "Because I chose otherwise." He stepped back and motioned toward her horse. "Ride hard, white woman. Do not look back." She hesitated, unwilling to turn away from him. "Why spare me?" Instead of answering, he reached into a pouch at his belt and drew out something that caught the dying light, a silver hair comb. "This is yours," he said, holding it out. "I found it near the stream that borders your land." Vera stared at the comb, then at his face. "You're the one they captured. The scout." "I am called Nakai." He placed the comb in her palm, his fingers brushing hers for the briefest instant. "Now go, before I change my mind." She swung into the saddle, hands shaking as she gathered the reins. As she turned away, his voice stopped her. "Vera Lockridge." Hearing her name from his lips sent a chill through her. "The mountains have eyes," he said. "Remember that." She drove her heels into her horse and fled, leaving the burning cabin and the man who knew her name behind. Ben Crow's home collapsed in fire, sparks spiraling into the darkening sky. By the time she reached her ranch, night had fully fallen. Ruth Calder rushed to her, fussing over her torn clothes and tear-streaked face. Vera gave only the bare facts. Ben Crow was dead, his cabin destroyed. She said nothing of Nakai, nothing of the way his eyes had seemed to look straight through her, or how his touch had lingered on her skin, or how he had spoken her name as if it already belonged to him. That night, she dreamed of him again. In her sleep, the Apache warrior stood on the ridge above her land, silent and watchful, like a guardian carved from stone. By morning, news of Ben Crow's death tore through Copper Springs. By noon, a posse had formed, led by Sheriff Orson Pike and Captain Silas Crow. They rode hard to Vera's ranch, grim men carrying vengeance in their eyes. "You're certain it was Apaches?" the sheriff asked, his notebook open as they sat in her parlor. "Yes," Vera said, pouring coffee with hands that would not quite steady. "3 of them, Silas Crow leaned forward. Did you recognize any? Was one larger than the others, wearing an eagle feather? The description struck too close. Vera nearly dropped the pot. Why do you ask? That would be the scout who escaped our custody, Crow said coldly. Did you see him? Vera hesitated, Nakai's face burning clear in her mind. Why had he spared her? What would happen to him if she spoke? I don't recall, she said at last. It all happened too fast. Crow's eyes narrowed. You're very fortunate, Miss Lockridge. Apaches don't usually leave witnesses. Perhaps they were interrupted, Sheriff Pike offered. Or sending a message. Either way, you can't stay out here alone. It's too dangerous. This is my home now, Vera said, setting down her cup. I'm not leaving it. Then accept protection, Crow pressed. I can station 2 men here. No. The word came out sharper than she meant. She softened it at once. Thank you. But Hobbs Miller's son is arriving from Tucson tomorrow. He'll be staying with us. It was a lie, born of desperation and a deep reluctance to have Crow's soldiers watching her every move. The captain studied her, unconvinced, but said no more. After they rode off, Vera stood on the porch, watching the dust from their horses drift away. The weight of her deception settled heavy in her chest. Why had she protected Nakai? He was Apache, one of the warrior settlers feared across the territory. And yet, he had returned her comb. He had spared her life when others demanded her death. And in his eyes, when she accused him of killing Ben Crow, there had been something else. Something that did not belong to the savage Silas Crow described. Ruth Calder stepped quietly to her side. I've drawn a bath for you, Miss Vera. You look like you need it, Ruth Calder said gently. Vera Lockridge managed a tired smile. You're a blessing, Ruth. Behind the closed door of her bedroom, she sank into the copper tub and let the warm water peel away the dust and the fear of the day before. Her thoughts betrayed her, drifting back to Nakai. His flawless English, his calm authority. I chose otherwise. The words echoed in her mind. The audacity of him, deciding whether she lived or died, should have angered her. Instead, she found herself wondering what else he might claim as his own. Flustered by the thought, she slipped beneath the water, hoping the heat on her cheeks would fade. Later, dressed in a plain cotton nightgown, Vera sat at her vanity and reached for her hair comb. The silver caught the lamplight, scattering tiny stars across the wall. Nakai had carried this, had returned it when he could have kept it. Why? A sudden sound outside made her start. The thunder of hooves. She crossed to the window and parted the curtain just enough to see a lone rider galloping toward the house under the moon. Her heart pounding, Vera grabbed Jonah Lockridge's pistol from the bedside drawer and hurried downstairs. Ruth Calder was already at the door, peering through a narrow crack. It's Cade Miller, she whispered. Hobbs Miller's boy from town. Vera lowered the pistol as Ruth opened the door. Cade stumbled inside, face pale beneath his freckles. Miss Lockridge, he gasped. Pa sent me to warn you. There's a war party heading this way, 20 Braves at least. An Army scout just rode into town. When? Vera asked, her mouth dry. Tonight. Coming from the north. Cade glanced nervously back into the dark. Pa says you should come to town now. Sheriff Orson Pike's gathering men to defend the settlement. Vera didn't hesitate. Ruth, pack only what you must. Cade, ready the wagon. Within minutes, they were on the road. Vera looked back once at the ranch house, at all Jonah had built, wondering if it would still be standing by dawn. They hadn't gone a mile when hooves pounded behind them. Cade urged the horses on, but a wagon was no match for mounted riders. "Get down!" Cade shouted, grabbing his rifle. Gunshots shattered the night. Vera dragged Ruth to the floorboards as Cade fired back, one boy against unseen attackers. A bullet struck him in the shoulder, hurling him from the seat. The terrified horses bolted. The wagon slammed into a rock, tipped, then rolled. Vera felt herself thrown, the ground knocking the breath from her lungs. Dazed, she crawled toward the wreck. Ruth Calder lay nearby, unmoving, a dark stain spreading across her gray dress. Cade was nowhere in sight. Voices carried through the darkness, not Apache, but Spanish. Mexican bandits. Vera reached for her pistol and found only empty air. It was gone in the crash. A lantern flared to life, revealing 3 men advancing. Their leader, thick-set with a scar carved across his cheek, smiled when he saw her. "Look what we have," he said in accented English. "The rich gringa from Boston." Vera backed away, searching desperately for anything. A weapon, a place to hide. The man laughed. "Your father owed me money. We had an agreement about cattle crossings. He's gone now." His grin widened. But perhaps his daughter can settle the debt another way. A scream rose in Vera's throat, then died as a war cry ripped through the night. The bandits spun, weapons raised, as shadows burst from the dark. Arrows hissed through the air. 2 men fell before they could fire. The leader shot wildly, then an arrow punched through his throat, cutting him down. Silence followed, broken only by Vera's ragged breathing. She pressed herself against the overturned wagon, certain she had only traded one death for another. A figure stepped into the lantern light, tall, unmistakable. Nakai approached slowly, bow lowered, but ready. "Vera Lockridge," he said quietly. "Twice now, I find you in danger." Relief weakened her legs. "Ruth," she whispered, forcing the words out. "Please, help her." Nakai knelt beside the housekeeper, his hands gentle as he examined the wound. After a moment, he looked up, sorrow in his eyes. The bullet found her heart. She walks with the ancestors now. Grief crashed over Vera. Ruth Calder had been her only friend in this hard land, her anchor when she had none. "And Cade?" she asked, dreading the answer. "He lives," Nakai said, gesturing into the dark, where another Apache warrior supported Cade Miller's slumped body. "His wound won't kill him, but he needs tending," Nakai said. Vera Lockridge drew in a steadying breath, forcing herself upright. "Why are you here?" Cade said a war party was coming. "Not war," Nakai replied. "Justice." His face hardened. 3 nights ago, soldiers struck our camp while the hunters were away. They took women and children. We followed their trail to a canyon north of here. "That can't be true," Vera said quickly. "The army wouldn't." "Not every man who wears blue obeys his commanders." Nakai cut in. "Some hunt Apache for coin, $10 for a scalp." His gaze held hers, daring her to deny it. Vera had heard rumors, whispers she dismissed as frontier exaggeration. The grief etched into his eyes told her otherwise. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't know." Nakai searched her face, weighing her words. Whatever he found seemed enough. "Come," he said at last. "This place is not safe. The noise will draw others." "I can't leave Ruth Calder," Vera protested. "We will honor her when there is time," he answered. Nakai gave a low whistle. A horse emerged from the darkness, Vera's mare, somehow freed during the wreck. "Can you ride?" he asked. She nodded, though every muscle protested. He lifted her into the saddle, his hands firm and certain at her waist. Another warrior brought Cade Miller forward, settling the wounded boy onto a second horse. "Where are we going?" Vera asked. Nakai swung up behind her, his presence solid and warm at her back. "To a place of safety." His breath stirred the hair near her temple. "Trust me, Vera Lockridge." Trusting an Apache warrior, one who had appeared twice at the edge of her death, felt like madness. And yet, as they rode into the night, Vera found herself leaning against his chest, surrendering to the strange calm he offered. They traveled through darkness along paths she could not see. Nakai guided the horse with barely a touch, moving in quiet harmony with the animal. Exhaustion pulled at her, fear and grief blurring together until she drifted in and out of awareness, anchored only by the strong arm around her. She woke to dawn, spilling into a narrow canyon. They had stopped beside a clear stream, the horses drinking deeply. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice rough. "The place between worlds," Nakai said as he dismounted and helped her down. "My people call it Shadow Canyon. White men do not come here." Vera looked up at towering red walls glowing gold and crimson in the rising sun. Despite everything, the beauty caught her breath. Cade lay nearby, his shoulder bound with strips of cloth. He stirred when she knelt beside him, fear flashing as he saw the Apache warriors. "It's all right," Vera said gently. "They saved us." "Ruth?" Cade asked weakly. Vera shook her head, unable to speak. Cade closed his eyes, grief carving lines into his young face. Nakai approached with a water skin. "Drink," he said, offering it first to Cade, then to Vera. "We rest until nightfall. Then we move again." "Move where?" Vera asked. "I need to go back to town, to tell Sheriff Orson Pike what happened." "The men who attacked you were not alone," Nakai said quietly. "Someone sent them to find you on that road." "That's impossible," Vera said. "Who would want to hurt me?" He crouched beside her, dark eyes intent. "The same man who blames Apache for every death. The same man who sends soldiers after our women and children." "Silas Crow," Vera whispered, remembering the captain's sharp interest in her land. Nakai nodded. "His father was fair. The son hunts my people like animals. And now he hunts you." "But why?" she asked. "I've done nothing to him." "Your land," Nakai said, gesturing toward the distant peaks. "The stream on your ranch flows from a sacred spring in Apache country. Crow believes there is gold there. He wants war, so the army will drive us away." Vera's thoughts reeled. She remembered Silas Crow's insistence on placing soldiers at her ranch, his unsettling knowledge of Nakai. And suddenly, the pieces began to fit. "If what you're saying is true," Vera Lockridge said carefully, "then I'm no safer in town than I am here." "Less safe," Nakai replied. "Here, you are under my protection." The possessive edge in his voice sent a tremor through her, one that had nothing to do with fear. Vera looked away, unsettled by her own response. "I need to send word to Sheriff Orson Pike. He has to know what happened." "The boy can carry your message once he's strong enough," Nakai said. He rose and held out his hand. "Come, rest while you can." He led her to a shallow cave carved into the canyon wall. Furs had been laid out to form a simple bed. Outside, other warriors moved about their camp with quiet efficiency, their motions nearly soundless. "This is your home?" Vera asked, taking in the sparse space. Clay pots, a few tools, weapons lined neatly against the stone. "One of them," Nakai said, motioning for her to sit. "I move between worlds, Vera Lockridge." "Like me?" She eased down onto the furs, grateful to let her aching body rest. I don't understand. You were born to one life and forced into another. He settled across from her, sitting cross-legged on the packed earth. So was I. Tell me, she said, surprised by her own curiosity about the man who defied everything she'd been taught to believe. Nakai was quiet for a long moment. His gaze turned inward. My mother was Chiricahua Apache, he began. My father was an army scout. They lived in peace until raiders attacked our camp. My mother hid me in a basket among the rocks. A missionary found me. He took me to his school. That's how you learned English? Vera said softly. He nodded. I learned many things. Your language, your books, your God. But I never forgot my mother's ways. When I was 16, I returned to my people. Weren't they angry that you'd lived among white men? Some were. A shadow crossed his face. Others saw worth in one who could walk in both worlds. But I belong fully to neither. To white men, I am only Apache. To my people, I carry the mark of the other world. The loneliness in his voice struck something deep inside her. I understand, Vera said quietly. Since my father died, I've felt untethered. Boston isn't home anymore, but neither is this place. Nakai studied her. Yet you fight to keep your father's land. It's all I have left of him, she said with a sad smile. Foolish, isn't it? To risk everything for dirt and stone? Not foolish. He leaned forward, intensity in his eyes. Sacred. We fight for our land because it holds the bones of our ancestors, the dreams of our children. Your father's spirit rests there now. You honor him by defending it. His words settled into her like truth she'd felt but never named. For the first time since arriving in Arizona, Vera felt truly seen. Thank you, she whispered, tears surprising her, for saving my life, for seeing me. Nakai reached out, catching a tear on his fingertip with a gentleness that stole her breath. Rest now, he said softly. You are safe here. As he turned to leave, Vera caught his wrist. Stay, she said without thinking, just until I fall asleep. He hesitated, then sat beside her, his back against the cave wall. Vera lay down on the furs, keenly aware of his closeness, the steady rhythm of his breathing in the quiet. Nakai, she murmured, sleep already pulling at her. What does your name mean? His hand brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, light as air. One who sees far, he said. One who watches. She drifted into sleep with his words echoing in her mind, and for the first time since Jonah Lockridge's death, she did not dream of fire and blood, but of mountains stretching endlessly beneath an open sky. Vera woke to voices, low, urgent, spoken in a language she didn't understand. The cave was empty. Nakai was gone. Sunlight slanted through the entrance, suggesting late afternoon. She rose stiffly, every muscle protesting the past day's ordeal. Her dress was torn and stained, her hair tangled and heavy. And for a moment, she wondered what awaited her beyond the canyon walls. Strangely, those worries felt small now, belonging to a life she had already stepped away from. Outside the cave, Vera found Cade Miller sitting beside a modest fire, his arm secured in a sling made from deerskin. His face lit up when he saw her. Miss Lockridge, thank the Lord you're all right. She knelt beside him, carefully studying the bandage on his shoulder. How are you holding up? Better, ma'am. Nakai put some kind of herb poultice on it. Burned like hell at first, but the pain eased up after. Vera glanced across the canyon. Several Apache warriors were gathered at the far end, locked in what looked like a heated argument. Nakai stood apart from them, his posture stiff, jaw set. "What's going on?" she asked. Cade shrugged with his good shoulder. "Been like that for near an hour. The one they call Core looks fit to explode." He lowered his voice. "Miss Lockridge, are we prisoners here?" "No," she said, firmer than she felt. "Nakai saved our lives. He won't hurt us." As if summoned by her words, Nakai broke from the group and walked toward them. His expression was grim, the lines around his mouth etched deeper than before. "There is news from the settlement," he said. "The army claims Apache attacked your ranch last night and killed your housekeeper. They are forming a war party to hunt us." Vera rose to her feet. "That's a lie. It was Mexican bandits." "Silas Crow leads the soldiers," Nakai replied. "They will come into these mountains." "Then we have to tell the truth," Vera insisted. "Sheriff Orson Pike will believe me." Nakai's next words struck like gunfire. "Sheriff Orson Pike is dead." The air left her lungs. "Dead?" "Shot in his office last night," Nakai said quietly. "They say Apache arrows were found, but my people were nowhere near the town." The loss hit her hard. Sheriff Pike, steady, fair, her father's friend, gone. Vera's voice fell to a whisper. "Silas Crow." Nakai nodded once. "He is removing anyone who might stand in his way. The time for words has passed. Now we survive." "I'll go with you," Cade said suddenly, forcing himself upright. "I can tell what I saw. Those weren't Apache on the road." "No," Nakai said, his tone final. "You will return to your father. You will tell him what happened. But speak to no one else until the time is right." "And when will that be?" Vera asked. "When we have proof of Crow's betrayal." Nakai turned to her fully. "You must choose, Vera Lockridge. Come with me into the mountains, or return with the boy. But know this. If you go back, Crow will not allow you to live long enough to speak the truth. It was no choice at all. Certain death, or the unknown. Yet something deeper than fear pulled her toward him. Something that reached beyond borders and blood. I'll go with you, she said quietly. Relief flickered across Nakai's eyes, brief, quickly hidden. He nodded and turned to Cade. We'll take you as far as North Ridge. From there you can reach the settlement by morning. They left at dusk, moving single file along narrow trails carved into the mountainside. Vera rode behind Nakai, watching the powerful lines of his back as he guided them through darkness. What kind of man was this? One who walked between worlds, who spoke of honor and sacred ground, yet commanded warriors without hesitation. They reached the ridge just before midnight. Nakai dismounted and helped Cade down. Follow that star, he instructed, pointing upward. Keep it over your right shoulder until dawn. You'll see the town lights before sunrise. Cade swallowed. What about Miss Lockridge? I will protect her with my life, Nakai said. Go, quickly. Vera slid from her horse and embraced Cade. Tell your father what you saw, and be careful who you trust. They watched until the boy vanished into the night. Nakai turned back to her. We must move. Crow's men will start searching at first light. Vera gathered her skirts and prepared to mount. Where are we going? To the land of my ancestors, Nakai said, his voice softening. A hidden valley deep in the mountains, where the springs run clear even in the driest season. They rode on through the night, climbing higher into the peaks. Behind them, the other warriors split away, spreading out to watch for those who would surely follow. Now there were only the two of them. moving like ghosts across a land that felt half dream, half waking world beneath the moon's pale glow. Vera found herself watching Nakai as they rode. The clean line of his nose, the sharp planes of his cheekbones shaped by heritage and hard living, the fall of his hair, black as a raven's wing, spilling past his shoulders. He was nothing like the men she had known in Boston, with their tailored coats and careful words spoken over brandy. Nakai carried his strength openly, without polish or apology. He moved with the quiet certainty of a hunter, yet treated her with a respect many so-called civilized men never had. "You're staring," he said without turning, a trace of amusement in his voice. Heat rushed to Vera's cheeks. "I was just thinking about your people, about where we're going." Nakai eased his horse, letting her draw alongside him where the trail widened. "It is a sacred place. Few white eyes have seen it." "Then why take me there?" For a long moment he said nothing, his profile cut sharply against the night sky. "Because you chose truth over fear. Because you look with eyes that want to understand." He glanced at her. "And because you have nowhere else to go." The blunt honesty should have stung. Instead, Vera smiled. "Fair enough." They crested a ridge just as dawn broke over the eastern horizon. Below them lay a valley unlike anything Vera had seen in Arizona. A living ribbon of green cradled between towering cliffs, a silver stream winding through its heart. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "This is Whispered Valley," Nakai said. "My mother's people have guarded it for generations." As they descended, Vera saw dwellings tucked into the cliff walls, traditional Apache wickiups beside small stone and wood structures that spoke of permanence. Children paused in their play to watch them pass. Women lifted their heads from morning work, curiosity in their eyes. Nakai led her to a dwelling set apart, built into a natural alcove in the rock. "You will stay here," he said, helping her down. "It was my mother's home." Inside, the space was simple but welcoming. Furs and woven blankets laid over a raised sleeping platform, clay pots for cooking and storage, a small fire pit beneath a smoke hole. What caught Vera most by surprise was a narrow shelf of books tucked into the stone. "Your books?" she asked, tracing the worn spines. "From my time with the missionary," Nakai said, lingering at the doorway as if unsure of crossing fully inside. "Rest, I will send food." Before he turned away, Vera spoke quickly. "Nakai, I have nothing with me. No clothes. No necessities." A faint smile touched his mouth. "The women will help you. Ask for Saya. She speaks some English." After he left, Vera explored further. Alongside the books, religious texts, Shakespeare, Dickens, and a dog-eared copy of The Last of the Mohicans, she found small relics of a life between worlds. A tarnished silver mirror, a china cup painted with roses, an army compass etched with initials. Saya arrived not long after, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a face lined by years and wisdom. She brought a soft deerskin dress and moccasins, then led Vera to a stream screened by willows, helping her wash away the dust and blood of travel. "Nakai says you Boston woman," Saya said as she gently combed tangles from Vera's hair. "Very far from home." "Yes," Vera replied quietly. "Very far." Saya nodded. "Nakai also far from home, always between." "Between what?" "Between worlds," Saya said softly. "Apache ways and white man ways." Her fingers moved gently through Vera's hair. Now maybe not so alone. Vera felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "We barely know each other." Saya chuckled. "Eyes speak before mouth. I see how he watches you, how you watch him." Before Vera could answer, Another woman called out. Saya replied in Apache, then turned back. Come, council meets. Nakai asks you attend. They walked to the center of the settlement where a large fire burned. The men of the tribe sat in a wide circle, faces grave in the fresh morning light. Nakai motioned for Vera to stand beside him. The council spoke mostly in Apache. Voices firm, measured, each speaker holding a feather before passing it on. Vera understood none of the words, yet the weight of the moment was unmistakable. At last, Nakai turned to her, switching to English. My people must hear what you saw. Tell them about the ambush, about Silas Crow. Vera straightened, suddenly aware of every gaze fixed on her. She spoke carefully, describing the Dry Gulch riders who had attacked them on the road, their accents, their weapons, the way their leader claimed her father owed him money. She told them of Silas Crow's unsettling interest in her ranch, his questions, his pressure. He wants my land, she finished quietly, and he's willing to start a war to take it. An older warrior rose, his English rough but clear. Why, white chief, kill for your land? Many empty lands for taking. The water, Vera said, the truth striking her all at once. Nakai told me the stream on my ranch comes from a sacred spring. Is it here, in this valley? Nakai nodded, his jaw set. We call it the water of life. It is born in the heart of the mountain. It flows through our land before reaching yours. And Silas Crow believes there's gold there. Vera continued, the pieces locking together. If he drives the Apache away and seizes my ranch, he controls the water. Her voice hardened. Then he finds the gold. He becomes rich man, the elder said, finishing for her. Old story. White men always hunger for yellow metal. The council argued on, voices rising and falling. Nakai translated the heart of it for Vera. Some warriors demanded an immediate strike against the settlement. Others urged restraint, reminding the council that not all white settlers were enemies. When the voices finally quieted, Nakai turned to her. What do you think we should do? Vera took a breath. We need proof. Something solid, enough to force Governor Edgar Holt to investigate. Without that, it's my word against a respected army captain. And how do we find this proof? Nakai asked. The bandits, she said at once. If we capture one alive and make him confess who hired him. We searched their camp yesterday, Nakai interrupted. It was abandoned. They fled south, across the border. Her hope faltered, then reshaped itself. Then we searched my ranch. Crow must have left something behind. Letters, maps, orders. Something that ties him to this. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the circle. The decision was made. Nakai and two trusted warriors would take Vera back to her ranch under cover of darkness and search for evidence. As the council dispersed, an elderly woman approached, her face deeply lined, her eyes clouded with age. She spoke softly in Apache, lifting a gnarled hand to touch Vera's hair. My grandmother, Nakai said quietly. Noma. She sees things others cannot. The old woman's voice flowed like water over stone. When she finished, she patted Vera's cheek and shuffled away. What did she say? Vera asked. Nakai hesitated, something like awe or uncertainty passing through his eyes. She said you carry fire in your hair and water in your heart. That together, we will either save both our peoples or destroy them. He paused. She called you my destiny. The word hung between them, heavy and unsettling. Vera looked away first, her pulse racing. I should prepare for tonight, she murmured, retreating into practicality. Nakai nodded. Rest while you can. The path ahead is dangerous. Throughout the day, Vera tried to quiet her thoughts by learning the ways of the Apache. Saya showed her how to grind corn into meal, how women wove baskets so tight they could hold water. Children, shy at first, crept closer, fascinated by her red-brown hair. As evening neared, she returned to Nakai's mother's dwelling and found him waiting, his expression tense. "What is it?" she asked. "Scouts spotted frontier cavalry in the foothills," he said. "They are searching the canyons. We must wait another day before attempting your ranch." Disappointment tightened her chest, but she nodded. Another day for Silas Crow to tighten his grip. "Come," Nakai said suddenly, extending his hand. "There is something I want to show you." Curiosity overcame caution. Vera placed her hand in his. His grip was warm, calloused, steady as he led her along a narrow trail climbing behind the settlement into the rocks. They moved in silence, broken only by breath and distant birdsong. The path steepened, forcing Nakai to help her over difficult stretches, his hands firm at her waist, hers resting briefly on his shoulders. Each touch sent a quiet awareness through her. Up close, she caught his scent. Leather, wood smoke, and something undeniably him. When their eyes met, warmth flickered there, stealing her breath. At last they reached a high plateau. Vera gasped. Before them lay a natural pool fed by a waterfall spilling from the rock face. Steam curled into the air, the water glowing softly in the fading light. "The sacred spring," Nakai said quietly. "The source of the water of life." Vera stepped closer to the edge, struck by the clarity of the pool. Steam curled softly above its surface. "It's warm," she murmured, "heated by the earth itself." Nakai crouched, letting his fingers trail through the water. "My people believe it heals." "Is that why Silas Crow wants it?" Vera asked. "For healing?" Nakai's expression darkened. "For profit. There are men who would bottle this water and sell it to rich whites chasing miracles." "And the gold?" she pressed. "Is that just a story?" "Perhaps a lie to lure investors," he said, straightening. "The water is the true treasure." They stood in silence as evening light played across the pool. The setting sun painted the rock walls in amber and rose, turning the drifting mist to gold. "It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen," Vera said softly. Nakai studied her, his gaze intent. "Why did you come to Arizona, Vera Lockridge?" "The real reason." The question unsettled her. "My father died," she said carefully. "He left me the ranch." "You could have sold it," Nakai replied gently. "Stayed in Boston among your own people. Yet you chose a land of strangers and danger. Why?" Vera looked toward the distant horizon. "There was nothing left for me in Boston. My father was all I had." She swallowed. "After he died, there was a man, a business associate. He made it clear he expected me to marry him now that I had no protection." Nakai's voice lowered, dangerous and soft. "Did he hurt you?" "Not physically," she answered, wrapping her arms around herself. "But his intentions were clear, the way he looked at me." The memory still burned. I couldn't bear being passed from one man's ownership to another's without a choice of my own. When I learned of the ranch, I saw it as escape, a chance to decide my own fate. Nakai stepped closer, not touching her, but near enough that she felt his warmth. "And now?" he asked. "What fate do you choose now?" She turned to face him, struck anew by the strength of his features, the depth in his eyes. "I don't know," she admitted. "Everything has changed so fast. A week ago, I believed all Apache were savages to be feared." "And now?" he prompted. Now I'm certain of only one thing, Vera said. I want the truth known. I want justice. For your people and for mine. Nakai lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, then touched her cheek. His fingers were calloused, yet impossibly gentle. You have a warrior's heart, Vera Lockridge. The words warmed her more than his touch. In Boston, women were praised for beauty and manners, never for courage. Thank you, she whispered. The moment stretched, heavy with unspoken meaning. Then Nakai stepped back, breaking it. We should return before dark, he said, his voice roughened. Tomorrow will come soon enough. As they descended the trail, Vera became acutely aware of his presence behind her, of each steadying hand when the path narrowed. Something had shifted between them, a recognition neither could deny, yet neither dared name. That night, alone in his mother's dwelling, Vera dreamed of the sacred spring, of Nakai's hands, of water and fire meeting in a veil of steam rising toward an endless sky. She woke breathless, her heart racing, the memory of his touch lingering like a promise. Outside, dawn broke over the eastern ridges. A new day. One that would take her back to her ranch, back to settlers and soldiers, back to danger. But no longer alone. The plan was simple in theory. Return under cover of darkness, search for evidence of Silas Crow's schemes, then escape back to the Apache stronghold before dawn. In practice, 1,000 things could go wrong. They departed at sunset, riding single file along hidden mountain trails. Nakai led, Vera close behind him, with Kor and Tarek guarding the rear. No one spoke. Even the horses seemed to sense the need for silence. Vera wore the clothing Saya had given her, a deerskin dress and soft moccasins that allowed silent movement. Her hair was braided and tucked beneath a dark cloth. At her waist hung a knife in a beaded sheath, a gift from Noma. For protection, the old woman had said through Nakai's translation, and for courage. The weight of it against Vera's hip steadied her. They reached the ridge overlooking her land, well past midnight. Nakai raised his hand, signaling them to stop, and then motioned for Vera to join him. Below, her ranch lay washed in moonlight. The house stood dark, the barn door hung open. Cattle shifted uneasily in their pen, but it was the tent near the corral, and the two men seated beside a small fire that caught her breath. Soldiers, Nakai whispered. Silas Crow has left guards. Vera's heart dropped. We'll never get inside without being seen. Nakai studied the scene below, his gaze sharp and measuring. There is a way. He turned to Kor and spoke rapidly in Apache. Kor nodded once, then vanished into the darkness with Tarek. What are they doing? Vera whispered. Creating a distraction? Nakai helped her dismount and tied their horses to a scrub oak. When the soldiers investigate, we enter the house. They waited in strained silence, eyes fixed on the guards below. One sat by the fire while the other paced with a rifle slung over his shoulder. Minutes dragged, each one heavy. Then the quiet shattered. The cattle bellowed suddenly, the herd surging as unseen hands drove them toward a broken stretch of fence at the far end of the property. Now, Nakai said, taking her hand. They descended the ridge fast, slipping from shadow to shadow. As the guards ran toward the scattering cattle, Nakai pulled Vera across the yard to the back door of the ranch house. It was locked, but Nakai slid a knife blade into the latch and forced it open with practiced ease. They slipped inside the kitchen. Vera's throat tightened. This was where she had shared so many meals with Ruth Calder. She pushed the memory aside. Where would Silas Crow hide documents? Nakai murmured. My father's study? Vera whispered. This way. They moved through the darkened house, every creak of the floorboards setting her nerves on edge. The study door stood ajar. Inside, Jonah Lockridge's desk had been ransacked. Drawers yanked open, papers strewn across the floor. Someone's already been searching, Vera breathed. Crow. Nakai nodded grimly. Looking for what we seek. They searched methodically despite the pounding urgency. Vera checked every place she knew. The false bottom of the desk drawer, the hollow behind the bookshelf, the loose floorboard where her father had once hidden emergency funds. Nothing. If Crow found it, she whispered, despair creeping in, then we have no proof. Nakai kept searching, calm and precise. He traced picture frames, lifted the rug, tapped the walls for hollow spaces. Your father, he said suddenly. Where did he keep what mattered most? Vera frowned. He had a strongbox, but it's not here. Her eyes widened as memory surfaced. He mentioned leaving important papers with a friend, for safekeeping. Who? Nakai asked. Sheriff Orson Pike, she said softly. He was executor of my father's will. And now Pike is dead, Nakai said. The circle closes. Voices outside cut through the room. Boots on the porch. The guards had returned sooner than expected. We must go, Nakai said, gripping her arm. They crept back through the house. But before they reached the kitchen, the front door opened. They pressed into the shadows of the parlor as footsteps entered. Check upstairs, came a familiar voice. I want this place secured before dawn. Silas Crow. Vera felt Nakai tense beside her, his hand sliding toward the knife at his belt. She touched his arm, a silent plea. They were outnumbered, outgunned. Soldiers moved in the kitchen. The back door was blocked. The only escape was the parlor window. Vera pointed. Nakai nodded. They waited until the footsteps on the stairs faded, then crossed the parlor without a sound. Nakai eased the window open, checked the yard, and helped Vera through. They had just reached the barn's shadow when a shout erupted from the house. The window! Someone's been inside! Run, Nakai ordered, shoving her toward the ridge where their horses waited. They sprinted across open ground, stealth abandoned for speed. Lanterns flared behind them as soldiers poured from the house. A rifle cracked. The bullet struck dirt at their feet. They hit the ridge and scrambled upward as more shots rang out. Vera's lungs burned, her legs shaking, fear driving her forward. Nakai stayed close, gripping her arm when the ground turned treacherous. Halfway up, Nakai sucked in a sharp breath and stumbled. Vera turned in time to see him clutch his side, his fingers slick with blood. You're hit, she gasped. Keep moving, he growled. Almost there. She wrapped an arm around his waist, taking his weight as they climbed. Below them, soldiers reached the base of the ridge, their shouts echoing through the night as the hunt closed in. Kor and Tarek appeared at the crest above them, arrows already drawn. They loosed covering shots that forced the soldiers to keep their distance, while Vera and Nakai reached the horses. Nakai vaulted into the saddle despite the wound, then leaned down and hauled Vera up behind him. They rode hard into the dark, slipping onto narrow trails no mounted patrol could follow. Nakai did not slow, though Vera felt the rigid tension in his body, the warm seep of blood spreading beneath his shirt. Hold on, she whispered close to his ear. Please, just hold on. Near dawn, they reached the hidden valley. Nakai slid from the horse, his face drained of color in the pale light. He staggered, and Vera caught him, her arms locking around his waist. I need help, she cried as they crossed into the settlement. He's been shot. Women emerged from the dwellings at once, swift and purposeful. They guided Nakai into a larger lodge, one of healing, Vera realized, and laid him on a bed of furs. Noma appeared, her gnarled hands already sorting herbs and poultices. Out, Noma commanded in English, waving the others away. Then she pointed at Vera. You stay. Help. Under Noma's direction, Vera helped ease off Nakai's bloodied shirt. The bullet had grazed his side, carving a deep furrow, but sparing anything vital. Still, the wound was raw and angry, and he had lost blood. Noma packed it with a pungent mixture smelling of sage and pine, then bound it tight with clean cloth. Nakai stayed conscious through it all. Silent, his dark eyes fixed on Vera as if drawing strength from her presence. When Noma finished, she nodded once. He lives, she said. Strong as mountain. She patted Vera's hand. You stay. Watch. Alone with him, Vera sat close, her fingers finding his. You shouldn't have risked yourself, she said softly. His grip tightened. My choice, he murmured. Always my choice. She studied his face as exhaustion softened the hard lines, his lashes dark against his cheeks. How had this man, this warrior she had been taught to fear, become so essential in such a short time? Rest, she urged, brushing hair from his brow. I'll be here when you wake. His eyes closed, breath deepening into sleep. Vera remained, unwilling to let go of his hand. Outside, the sun climbed over the valley, filling the lodge with gold. Saya found her hours later, still keeping vigil. You need rest too, Saya said gently. Come, eat. I will watch him. Reluctantly, Vera allowed herself outside. The settlement thrummed with life. Women cooking and weaving, children playing, men mending tools and weapons. Life endured despite the threat closing in. Kor approached and offered a wooden bowl of stew. In careful English, he said, Nakai, strong warrior, he heal. Thank you, Vera said, taking the bowl. For everything. Kor studied her, solemn. Nakai believes in you, so we believe. He hesitated. Never before has Apache warrior risked life for white woman. He sees something special in you. The words warmed her more than the food. She had grown up hearing the Apache called savages. Yet here she found honor, loyalty, and a community as deep as any she had known back east. I see something special in him too, she admitted. Kor nodded, as if this confirmed what he already knew. When he wakes, tell him. We found soldier camp, 2 miles south of your ranch. Many men. Silas Crow prepares. He's gathering forces, Vera said quietly. Preparing for war. Yes, Kor replied. War comes soon. Then he left her to her thoughts. Vera returned to the healing lodge and resumed her place at Nakai's side. He slept heavily, his body fighting to mend. She traced the contours of his face with her eyes, the straight nose, the high cheekbones, the firm jaw. What future could exist for an Apache warrior and a woman raised in Boston society? Their worlds were miles apart. Yet here, watching over him, those differences felt small beside the bond between them. Near evening, Nakai stirred. His eyes opened and found hers at once. Vera, he murmured, voice rough with sleep. You're still here. I promised, she said, helping him sit and offering water from a clay cup. How do you feel? I've known worse, he said with a faint grimace as he shifted. Did everyone make it back safely? Yes, Kor said. They found a soldier camp near your ranch. War is coming. Nakai's face hardened. Silas Crow is moving faster than I thought. We cannot wait. You're hurt, Vera said firmly. You shouldn't even be standing. Not to fight, he replied. To think. He took her hand, his grip steady despite the pain. We didn't find proof at your ranch, but there is another place. Her breath caught. The strong box. Yes. If your father trusted Sheriff Orson Pike with his papers, they may still be in his office. In town? Her pulse jumped. That's dangerous. Waiting is worse, Nakai said. Once the first shot is fired, truth won't matter. Then I'll go, Vera said without hesitation. I can walk into town without raising suspicion. They think I'm dead or taken. No. The word came sharp and immediate. It's the only way, she said evenly. You'd be shot on sight. I won't. He searched her face, torn between instinct and reason. Finally, he exhaled. Not alone. Kor and Tarek will take you to the edge of town. They planned in low voices. The route, the sheriff's office, where a strong box might be hidden. When night fell, Vera changed back into her torn traveling dress. It would draw less attention than Apache clothing. As she turned to leave, Nakai called her back. He lifted a small leather pouch from around his neck and pressed it into her palm. For protection. What is it? She asked. A medicine bundle, he said. Stones, herbs, an eagle feather. My grandmother made it when I returned to my people. She says it holds earth and sky. I can't take this, Vera whispered. It's too important. It will return with you. He tied the cord around her neck, his fingers brushing her skin. As you will return to me. On impulse, Vera leaned in and kissed him, brief, gentle, certain. I will come back. His hand cupped her cheek. Be careful, Vera Lockridge. You carry my heart with you. She couldn't speak. She only nodded, then turned and left, before doubt could claim her. Kor and Tarek were waiting with the horses. They rode fast through hidden trails, descending from the mountains. Near midnight, they reached the edge of Copper Springs. The town slept, save for the saloon's glow. Wait here, Vera said as she dismounted. If I'm not back by dawn, return without me. Kor nodded. 3 owl calls means danger. Vera slipped into town, moving through shadow. The sheriff's office stood dark and locked. She circled to the back, found a window unlatched. Luck favored her. Inside, the room felt wrong. Blood darkened the floorboards. Papers lay scattered, as if torn free during a struggle. Working by moonlight, she searched carefully. The desk held nothing. The filing cabinet, only routine records. Frustration crept in as her gaze swept the room again. Then she noticed the gun rack. One section of wall behind it looked newer than the rest. She slid the rack aside and uncovered a narrow door set into the wall, secured with a padlock. The key had to be somewhere in the office. Vera searched again, slower this time, beneath the desk blotter, inside the empty coffee tin, behind picture frames. Nothing. Then she remembered something her father once said about Sheriff Orson Pike. That man keeps his most important possession on him at all times, his watch. The sheriff's personal effects would have been gathered after his death. Where would they be kept? She checked the desk drawers once more and found a small box tucked into the bottom. Inside lay Pike's pocket watch, a folded handkerchief, and a small brass key. Her heart thudded as she fitted the key into the padlock. It turned easily, the lock dropping into her palm. Inside the hidden compartment sat exactly what she had hoped for. A metal strongbox, Lockridge engraved on the lid. Vera lifted it out with shaking hands. It wasn't locked. Her father must have trusted Pike completely. Inside were land deeds, including the deed to her ranch, several letters, and a leather-bound journal. The journal was her father's. She recognized his careful hand at once. She flipped pages quickly, stopping when a familiar name leapt out. Silas Crow. Her father had been recording the captain's actions for months. Secret meetings with Mexican contacts, rumors of private mining interests, threats against Apache settlements. Most damning of all was a letter tucked inside. Silas Crow proposing a partnership to exploit supposed gold in the stream that crossed Jonah Lockridge's land, outlining a plan to drive the Apache from their ancestral territory to seize the source. Her father's reply, drafted but never sent, was a firm refusal, along with a vow to report Crow to Territorial Governor Edgar Holt. "That's why you died," Vera whispered to the empty room. Her father's sudden illness ruled heart failure. Had it been something far darker? Boots sounded on the boardwalk outside. Vera snapped the strong box back into place, taking only the journal and letters and tucking them inside her dress. The front door rattled, and then a key turned in the lock. She slipped into the shadows of the back cells just as the door swung open. Silas Crow entered, followed by a soldier carrying a lantern. Crow tore through the desk drawers, irritation mounting. "It has to be here. Pike was the executor." "Maybe it was never kept here, sir," the soldier offered. "Or someone already found it." "Impossible," Crow snapped, then stopped short, his gaze fixing on the shifted gun rack and the open wall compartment. "Damn it, someone's been here." Vera pressed herself flat against the cell wall, fingers closing around Nakai's medicine bundle like a talisman. Crow stalked to the compartment and cursed when he found it empty. "Search the office," he ordered. "Whoever took it can't be far." The soldier moved methodically closer to the cells. Vera scanned for escape. The back window was too far. She wouldn't make it. Then an owl cried outside, 3 sharp calls. Both men froze. "What was that?" the soldier asked. Crow drew his pistol. "Check it." The instant the door opened, an arrow hissed through the dark and struck the soldier in the shoulder. He collapsed with a scream. Crow fired blindly into the night, shouting for reinforcements. Vera ran. She burst from the shadows toward the back window. Crow spun, gun leveling. "You," he snarled, recognition flaring. "I should have known you'd survive, Miss Lockridge." "It's over, Crow," Vera said, backing toward the window. "I have my father's journal. I know what you did." His face twisted with fury. "Your father was a fool. Opportunity was right in front of him, and now you'll die for his stubbornness." He raised the pistol. The shot never came. A dark shape crashed through the window behind him, slamming into Crow and driving him to the floor. The gun fired once into the ceiling. "Nakai!" Vera cried. They struggled on the boards. Vera grabbed a heavy wooden chair and brought it down hard on Crow's head. He went slack. She dropped beside Nakai, breathless. "You were supposed to be resting. You're wounded." "I could not let you face danger alone," he said, grimacing as he sat up. Fresh blood stained the bandage at his side. "You have it?" he asked. Vera pressed a hand to her bodice where the journal lay hidden. "I have the proof." Yes, everything they needed. Shouts echoed down the street as Silas Crow's men reacted to the gunshot. Time collapsed into urgency. Nakai forced himself upright, pain cutting across his face. "We leave. Now." They slipped out the back window and found Kor waiting with the horses. Tarek lay on the ground nearby, an army round buried in his leg. Without hesitation, Nakai moved to him. "Help me," he ordered, lifting his wounded brother. Vera mounted behind Tarek to steady him, while Nakai and Kor swung into the other saddles. They burst from town at a punishing pace, riding through pain and blood. Behind them came the sound of pursuit. Hoofbeats, shouted commands, the chaos of men scrambling to organize a chase. "They're closing in," Vera called over the thunder of hooves. Nakai glanced back once, jaw set. "There is another way. Devil's Canyon." "The slide sealed that pass," Kor warned. "No one rides there now." "Not fully," Nakai replied. "There's a narrow line along the wall. Dangerous, but it will hold." Vera remembered the stories. Devil's Canyon had swallowed travelers whole the year before. No one used it anymore. "Do it," she said without hesitation. "It's our only chance." Nakai turned their horses sharply from the main trail. The sounds of pursuit faded as they veered into darkness. The canyon's mouth appeared as a thin wound between towering stone walls. "Single file," Nakai said. "Stay tight to the right." They entered slowly. The path barely fit the horses. To the left, nothing but open blackness. Stones skittered under hooves and vanished into the void below. Vera locked her eyes on Nakai's back, refusing to look down. They were halfway through when Tarek's horse slipped, knocking loose a cascade of rocks. The sound boomed through the ravine. "They heard that," Vera whispered. Voices rose behind them at the canyon entrance. "Keep moving," Nakai commanded. "It opens ahead." Shots cracked the air. Bullets sparked off stone. Vera bent low over Tarek, making herself small as the horses pushed on. At last, the passage widened into a rough plateau. Nakai dismounted at once, scanning the walls. "We can bring it down," he said to Kor. "Seal the path." Kor understood instantly. They worked fast, prying at weakened rock with knife blades and leverage born of experience. Nakai turned to Vera. "When it starts, ride. Do not look back." Lanterns flickered below as the soldiers entered the narrow stretch. They were close now. The mountain groaned. The first stones shifted, then the wall gave way. Nakai and Kor leapt onto their horses as the canyon collapsed behind them. Rock and dust thundered down, swallowing the passage in a roar that shook the earth. They rode hard until the noise faded. When they finally looked back, the path was gone, buried beneath a mountain of stone. "We bought time," Nakai said, voice tight with pain. "But Crow will not stop." "Then we reach the governor first," Vera answered, pressing a hand over the journal hidden against her heart. "We have proof now." Nakai nodded, pale and exhausted. "Edgar Holt has an office in Tucson. 3 days' ride," Kor said grimly. "Tarek needs healing," Nakai decided. "You take him back to the valley. Vera and I ride south." Kor hesitated, then bowed his head. "May the spirits guard you." They parted in silence. Kor and Tarek turning back into the mountains, Vera and Nakai angling toward the desert beyond. They rode through what remained of the night without words. Vera could see Nakai's strength slipping. Blood seeped through the bandage at his side. At dawn, they stopped beside a narrow stream. Vera helped him down, startled by the heat pouring from his skin. "You're burning," she said, guiding him into the shade of a cottonwood. "You have a fever." She dipped her handkerchief into the cold stream and pressed it to his brow. Nakai caught her wrist, his eyes bright with fever, but clear. "The journal," he said. "Show me." Vera drew the journal and letters from inside her dress and laid them out on the ground between them. Together, they read Jonah Lockridge's careful hand, page after page, detailing Silas Crow's designs. False gold reports meant to lure investors. Plans to divert a sacred spring for profit. Deals struck with the Dry Gulch riders to frighten settlers who refused to sell. The last entry stopped her breath, dated 2 days before her father's death. Crow came today. When I refused him again and warned I would expose him, I saw murder in his eyes. If anything happens to me, this journal must stand as proof. He murdered my father, Vera whispered, grief and fury twisting together. Nakai closed his fingers around hers. Despite the fever, his touch was steady. And now we end him. For Jonah Lockridge, for Sheriff Orson Pike, for my people. They rested for hours. Vera kept watch while Nakai slept. When he woke, the fever had eased only slightly, but he pushed himself upright. "We ride," he said. "You can barely stand," Vera argued. "Silas Crow will have men on every road to Tucson." "I have known worse," he said, forcing a faint smile. "And I swore to protect you." They mounted and turned south, avoiding the main trails where they could. The heat became brutal. Vera shared her water, noticing how Nakai drank little, saving it for her despite his condition. By nightfall, they were only halfway. They camped in a shallow arroyo, lighting the smallest fire possible. Nakai's breathing grew rough through the night. His skin burned, then went cold. Vera cleaned the wound, changed the bandage, forced him to drink. "It's infected," she said as dawn crept in. "You need a doctor." "No doctors between here and Tucson," he answered weakly. "We go on." "You'll die if we do," she said, tears breaking free. Nakai lifted his hand and traced the tear on her cheek. "Then I die doing what I was meant to do." "I won't let you," Vera said fiercely, pressing his hand to her face. "Do you hear me, Nakai? I forbid it." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. So fierce, Vera Lockridge. "This is how a woman speaks to the man she loves," she said, the words escaping before she could stop them. He went still, dark eyes searching hers. "You love me?" "Yes," she said simply. "So you must live. Live so we can discover what this means. An Apache warrior and a Boston woman loving each other in this world." He pulled her down, kissing her with a strength that belied his weakness. When they parted, breathless, he murmured, "For you, Vera Lockridge, I will live." They broke camp at first light. Nakai insisted on riding. Vera stayed close behind him, arms around his waist to steady him. Near midday, they spotted riders on the horizon, frontier cavalry heading north. Vera guided them into a ravine until the patrol passed. "Crow is watching every approach," Nakai said. "We need another way." "What if we don't go straight to Edgar Holt?" Vera said. "What if we send the evidence?" "With whom?" Nakai asked. "Cade Miller," she answered. "His stage line runs to Tucson." "Too dangerous," Nakai said. "If Crow catches him, then we distract him," Vera said. "Something that pulls his men away from the road." Nakai considered, fevered mind still sharp. "Fire. Crow's camp south of my ranch," Vera said, understanding dawning. "If it burns, he'll rush to it." She nodded once, decision made. "But who would light such a fire?" Vera asked. "You're barely standing, and I can't do it alone." "My people will," Nakai said, straightening in the saddle, drawing on strength she hadn't known he still possessed. "There is an Apache camp half a day from here. We can reach it by nightfall." They turned southeast toward the foothills. As the sun dipped low, Vera spotted thin ribbons of smoke rising from cook fires above a cluster of wickiups tucked into a sheltered valley. The camp's sentries challenged them, bows lifted, but recognition came quickly when they saw Nakai. They were ushered inside. The tribal leader, a gray-haired man with a face carved by years of wind and sun, listened in silence as Nakai spoke. When he finished, The elder nodded once. He will help. Nakai translated. His warriors will make the diversion. His healer will tend my wound. That night, Vera watched anxiously as the healer cleaned Nakai's injury, murmuring chants under his breath. A poultice of bitter-smelling herbs was pressed into the wound and bound with fresh cloth. By morning, Nakai's fever had broken. He was still weak, but his eyes were clear again. Apache medicine is strong, he said with a tired smile, especially when a man has reason to heal quickly. Vera met his gaze, the weight of her words from the night before still between them. She did not look away. They left at noon, accompanied by 4 Apache warriors. The plan was simple. At midnight, the warriors would strike Silas Crow's supply camp, setting wagons and tents ablaze. When his men rushed to contain the fire, Vera and Nakai would ride for Tucson. As darkness fell, they took position on a ridge overlooking the camp. Below, soldiers moved through their routines, unaware. Lantern light flickered softly. When it begins, Nakai said, ride hard. Do not stop until you reach the governor. We ride together, Vera said firmly. Or not at all. Before he could argue, the night exploded. Shadows poured down the slope. Flames leapt. War cries split the dark. Soldiers shouted in confusion. Now, Nakai urged. They spurred their horses down the far side of the ridge and onto the Tucson road. Behind them, the camp burned. They rode through the night. By dawn, Tucson's adobe buildings rose ahead, washed in golden light. They slowed as they entered town, keeping to a calm pace. Nakai wore a frontier cavalry coat, taken during their escape from Copper Springs, his hair tied back, though his heritage was unmistakable. The governor's office stood on the main street, the territorial flag hanging limp in the morning air. Vera scanned for Crow's men and saw none. It worked, she whispered. They're all at the camp. They dismounted. Nakai winced as his feet touched the ground. Inside, a clerk looked up in surprise. Can I help you? We need to see Governor Edgar Holt, Vera said. Now, it's a matter of life and death. The governor is in a meeting. Tell him Vera Lockridge has evidence of Silas Crow's crimes, she cut in. Tell him innocent people will die if he doesn't see us. The clerk hesitated, then vanished through a back door. Moments later, he returned. The governor will see you. They were led into a spacious office where Edgar Holt rose from behind his desk, his gaze sharp and assessing. Miss Lockridge, he said. And your companion? This is Nakai, Vera replied, lifting her chin. A leader among the Apache and my betrothed. If the governor was surprised, he did not show it. You claim to have evidence. Vera placed the journal and letters on the desk. My father, Jonah Lockridge, documented everything before his death, which I now believe was murder. Silas Crow has provoked conflict, ordered killings, and sought profit by driving the Apache from their land. He is responsible for Sheriff Orson Pike's death, and more. Governor Holt read in silence. With each page, his expression darkened. When he reached the final entry, he looked up slowly, his decision clear. This is deeply troubling evidence, Governor Edgar Holt said. If it holds, Captain Silas Crow will face the full weight of the law. He stepped to the door and issued sharp instructions to the clerk outside. Send men at once. Crow is to be arrested immediately. Until then, you should both remain here. This office is the safest place in the territory. There is more, Nakai said, speaking for the first time. His voice was steady despite the strain in his body. My people have suffered greatly at Crow's hands. Any peace between Apache and settler must begin with that truth. Governor Holt studied him with new attention. You speak for your people. I speak for those who want peace, Nakai replied. For those who believe Apache and white men can share this land, if its sacredness is respected. An admirable belief, Holt said quietly. When this matter is settled, perhaps we will speak of such a peace. A sudden clamor outside cut the moment short. Raised voices, hurried footsteps. The door flew open and the clerk rushed in, face drained of color. Governor, Captain Crow is here. He's brought armed men. They're demanding Miss Lockridge be handed over. Vera moved instinctively closer to Nakai. Despite the pain etched across his face, he straightened, one hand drifting toward the knife at his belt. Governor Holt's expression hardened. Then the captain has chosen his end. He turned to them. Stay here, I will deal with this. Through the window, they watched Holt stride outside to meet Silas Crow, who had dismounted and was advancing across the street with several soldiers behind him. Crow looked unhinged, uniform streaked with soot, eyes burning. I demand the immediate surrender of Vera Lockridge and the Apache savage with her, Crow shouted. They are wanted for murder and insurrection. The only man facing charges today is you, Holt replied calmly. I have evidence of your crimes against settlers and Apache alike. Your command is finished. Crow's face twisted with fury. You're a fool, Holt. Those savages have slaughtered settlers. They're animals. The only animal I see is wearing a uniform, Holt shot back. Arrest Captain Silas Crow for the murders of Jonah Lockridge and Sheriff Orson Pike. As the territorial marshal stepped forward, Crow moved faster than thought. His pistol flashed into his hand. I'll see you in hell first. The shot rang out, the bullet tearing past the governor. Before Crow could fire again, Nakai burst from the office, slamming into him. They crashed into the dirt, grappling as the pistol discharged harmlessly into the air. Vera ran toward them, heart hammering, just as Crow drew a knife. Nakai! He caught Crow's wrist, stopping the blade inches from his throat. With a brutal twist, Nakai wrenched the knife free and pinned Crow to the ground. Marshals piled in, dragging the captain away as he spat curses and threats. It's over, Nakai said coldly. Your war ends today. As Crow was hauled off, Vera rushed to Nakai's side. He swayed, the fight reopening his wound. She slipped an arm around his waist. You could have been killed. Worth the risk, he said simply. To end this. To protect you. Governor Holt approached them, respect clear in his eyes. That was an act of courage. I am in your debt. I seek no debt, Nakai answered. Only justice for my people. And you shall have it, Holt promised. Crow will stand trial. And when you are recovered, I would be honored if you would represent your people in peace talks with the territory. Nakai inclined his head. I will return when I am strong enough. Governor Holt turned to Vera. And you, Miss Lockridge, what will you do now? Vera looked at Nakai, her answer already settled. I will rebuild my ranch, she said. Make it a place where Apache and settler can meet without fear. She took Nakai's hand. A place where two worlds can finally stand together. The days that followed blurred into testimonies and sworn statements. Silas Crow was imprisoned to await trial, his allies scattered or arrested. The evidence mounted, undeniable, proof that he had engineered the death of Jonah Lockridge and many others, all in pursuit of power and profit. The poison had been slipped into Jonah Lockridge's drink during a business supper, measured carefully, crafted to mimic heart failure. Once the truth surfaced, Governor Edgar Holt kept his word. Formal peace talks were opened with Apache leaders, and Nakai served as a bridge between two worlds that had long spoken only through blood and fear. The territorial legislature moved swiftly. Apache sacred lands were placed under protection, including the spring that fed both Whispered Valley and Vera Lockridge's ranch. The water Silas Crow had tried to steal for profit. When the dust finally settled, Vera and Nakai returned to her land. The ranch stood scarred but standing. Together, they began the slow work of rebuilding. Neighbors watched, some with curiosity, some with quiet disapproval. As a woman from Boston and an Apache warrior worked side by side, raising walls, mending fences, shaping something new from what had burned. One evening, as the sun set the mountains ablaze with reds and golds, Nakai took Vera's hand on the porch. "My grandmother's prophecy," he said softly. "Fire in your hair, water in your heart. She said together we would either save our peoples or destroy them." Vera rested her head against his shoulder, a peace settling in her she had never known. "I think we've chosen the right path," she said, "toward saving." He tilted her chin upward. "There is one thing not yet settled." "Oh?" Her heart quickened under his gaze. "You called me your betrothed in the governor's office. Was that strategy or truth?" She smiled, remembering the moment. "Truth, if you'll have me." Nakai laughed, warm and unguarded. "I have loved you since the day you stood in Ben Crow's cabin, afraid yet unbroken. I have loved you across borders, across the divide between our peoples." He drew a simple silver band set with turquoise from his pocket. "I had this made in Tucson." "It's perfect," Vera said, tears blurring her sight as he slipped it onto her finger. "Like this life we're building." He pulled her close. His kiss carried promise of work and laughter, of struggle and belonging, as the first stars broke through the Arizona dusk. Vera knew then she had found home. Not in a place, but in the heart of the man who had called her name in the dark to save her. 5 years later, morning light spilled through the window and woke her gently. She reached across the bed, empty. Smiling, she wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped onto the porch. Below, Nakai was lifting their 4-year-old son, Edward, onto a small pony. The boy sat proud and straight, a perfect blending of worlds. His father's dark eyes and high cheekbones, his mother's chestnut hair and determined chin. Beyond them stretched the land now known throughout the territory as Sacred Waters. Part working ranch, part neutral ground where Apache and settlers traded, spoke, and sometimes healed. The stream that had once drawn greed now fed gardens and orchards, clear and steady. As if sensing her gaze, Nakai looked up and smiled. The smile meant only for her. 5 years of marriage had deepened everything between them. Not everyone approved. Some settlers still turned away in town. Some Apaches still watched Vera with caution. But for every closed door, another opened. "Mama, look," Edward called. "I ride like Papa." "Beautifully," Vera answered, pride warming her chest. Nakai lifted the boy onto his shoulders and climbed the steps. "Someone is eager for breakfast before we leave." Today marked 5 years since the peace treaty between the territory and the Apache. Hard won, imperfect, but holding. A celebration waited in Whispered Valley, with Governor Edgar Holt himself attending. "Saya is already by the stream," Nakai said, noticing Vera's hand resting over her belly. "She says this child will be a girl, with eyes like the sky." Vera smiled, imagining a daughter with Nakai's strength and her own stubborn will. They set out together, wagon behind them, horses beneath them. Edward chattered in 2 languages, effortless and free. At the ridge where worlds had once divided, Vera paused, taking in the valley below, green, alive, filled with people preparing for celebration. Nakai rode up beside her and took her hand. "Happy?" he asked. "Beyond words," she replied. Together they rode down into the valley, their son between them, their future unfolding not without hardship, but rich with promise. In a land where water meant life and the sun burned away illusions, they had found something stronger than prejudice, more enduring than hate. Vera Lockridge had once cursed the Apache's name. Now she carried it with pride, alongside her own, proof that 2 worlds could become one in the sacred waters of love. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening and for allowing this story to speak to your heart. The Wild West still holds countless truths, some painful, some tender, all worth remembering. Stay with us, subscribe, comment, and invite others to discover these untamed stories. From our hearts to yours, thank you for being part of this journey. Aviso legal barra disclaimer. Each story shared here is produced for storytelling enjoyment. Certain scenes may include fictional or dramatized elements inspired by historical circumstances. Although AI tools assist us in visuals, narration, and script development, the emotional tone, editing, and quality control are conducted by people to ensure meaningful experiences. We fully uphold YouTube's policies, using no deceptive recreations or impersonations of real individuals. All creative resources are properly licensed. Unauthorized copying, re-uploading, or remixing is not permitted. Thank you for supporting the effort behind every episode we create.